In this video we're going to create the running animation. Since the run and the walk are very similar in position, we can alter the walk cycle into the run cycle with a few tweaks. Go to File and load DynoWalkC.fxs. The walk and the run share a common position, and it should be this way because they have to blend between each other in later lessons inside Compose mode. Now I'm not talking exact positions such as angles or translations. I'm talking positions like if the walk cycle is right foot forward on starting, then the run cycle should also be right foot forward. Let's change a few settings here. If you haven't done so already, middle mouse click something inside of the scene that belongs to the dinosaur group. Make sure the key edit is set to the primary group, Dino Body Keys, and we need to change the length of this cycle to be shorter so that it matches the run. Make sure CoordSys is turned off or set to parent coordinate system. Go to Edit mode. And in the pull-down menu, go to Distort Key Range. What this will do is this will scale the keys down by a specified value to match a new keyframe range. Under Scale Frame. We are going to scale this to 75%, or if you're having issues doing that manually, visually, you can scale this down. Make sure that that's scaled to 0.75, and make sure that it scales all channels on all objects in the scene. We're creating a clip for this one character. Turn on Quantize Time, which will snap the values to keyframe numbers instead of subframes. You don't want anything sitting on frame 22.05. You want them on exact frames. Perform Key Transform, and everything should be sitting now between the ranges of 0 and 24. Go to Animate mode. Using the wheel mouse to zoom in on the curves, and set the new out range to 24, and we're going to delete everything in between our passing positions and our key poses. So our passing positions are on frames 6 and 18, our key poses are 0, 12, and 24. Everything else, move the slider over the frame, hit the delete key, tap enter key twice to remove everything from the frame. And take a look at the dope cells up on top so that you only see keyframes sitting on our passing positions or key poses. Switch to a left view. Now we can change this into our run cycle. We have it running at the right rate now. It's walking really fast because he's going 24 frames instead of 32. So now we need to change how he runs. And the big difference between a walk and a run cycle is a run cycle at one point has no feet touching the ground, and a walk cycle always has one foot contacting the ground. In this case, the back foot is the foot that is not going to be touching the ground. So we're on frame 0. Let's put the back foot down. Use the A key to center our selection. And I'm just going to go up and down the hierarchy using the arrow keys and just mess with the pitch. Right about there, I think. And as the back foot is up, the front foot is just making contact with the ground. So we'll just tilt this foot down so that it's getting ready to make contact. Means if it's getting ready to make contact, the body is in the air. So multi-select the body, turn on multi-edit so we can edit them at the same time. And there's our first frame. Hit the enter key, make that also on frame 24. And switch this on frame 12 so that it's mirrored across. Let's bring the back foot up. Let's pitch it down. Uncurl those toes. On the pitch channel, I'm using the arrow keys to move up and down the hierarchy. The front foot is about to make contact and slam into the ground. I'm only using left mouse click, so I'm moving in parent mode on the CoordSys readout here. Multi-select, turn on the multi-edit, and move the foot up. And now I'm matching the curves up here so that they're very similar between the middle position and the two ends on our range. Let's go to frame 6. Frame 6, he runs pretty darn fast. So let's change the passing position on frame 6. He's just pushing off. So he's actually going to drop to the ground. The other foot is running just fine here. It's nice and out of the way. And during the in-betweens, he's going to jump off the ground. Let's go to frame 18. And you can change the curve settings with the buttons up here, or go to spline and set the curve in the pull-down menu. Let's move this one back as well and drop him down on the ground. Multi-edit is still turned on. So just make these match. Now between this keyframe and this keyframe, let's see if they match up. So far so good. So he jumps into the air, and we've just changed how his feet are in the air. So he's left the ground on frame 9, and he's leaving the ground on frame 21, and he's catching himself and pushing off on frame 3 and on frame 15. So between here, let's focus on how the body is going to be moving around again. So if he makes contact with the ground immediately on frame 4, he's caught himself and he's pushing off, which means frame 9, he's up in the air. He drops back down. Frame 12 catches himself, which we can go back here and put those in. So he has a slow catch, fast acceleration, and then a slow down and a catch again. He's going to push off on frame 21 and repeat the whole process. Let's see how that looks. Okay, on frame 24, create that frame 0 just to make sure it's good. If that's too much, let's drop those down just a little bit so that he doesn't jump into the air so fast. You can also raise him up. Oh, that breaks his leg. Let's leave that where it's at. Undo. Okay. Now, when we worked on the walk cycle, we have this template down here at the bottom that tells us how fast we're moving. So we need to change that template to match our new cadence. So turn off the filter, make sure all items is picked, turn on our cube, and our cube at frame 0, see he makes contact on the ground, so he's going to need to line up on frame 0. He's going to make contact, and the speed at which he's moving, he's pushed off on frame 12. So he needs to be a little bit faster here. So let's move that and keep track of our subdivisions here as he's moving. So he needs to move a bit faster. So I'm just going to the end and I'm dragging it down on Z, the curve down on Z, until I see the manipulator matching up more closely with how the foot is moving so I can get the stride length to run correctly. Once I have it running the proper speed, what I'm going to do is go to the procedurals and turn on the Z radius so that I line up my subdivisions on this template with the bones still. It's a little harder to check on the run cycle because the feet don't contact the ground at the same time. So I can only pay attention to how fast things are moving while it's hitting. So to be able to line this other foot up, I need to scale the Z radius to match where the other foot is moving so that I can line the other foot up as it's moving across. Okay, now we can hide it. Go to the filter, filter to the body keys again, so we can't pick that. We'll start with the foot, A key to center the selection here. Let's move it a little bit down. Then as he's making contact, this in between, I'm just going to drag this in between over till it matches that subdivision. And we're just going to align that on these in-betweens so that it stays in the right spot. So we've buried his foot in the ground. Pitch his toes up because he's gripping the ground and he's pushing off. So we're really just filling in different in-betweens and passing position alterations. Everything else still has a keyframe from the last lesson. So that one is lined up. He spends some airtime on frame 12. Now he hits. Let's straighten that one out. Hit zeros on pitch. Make sure it's lined up with his subdivision. He tracks that subdivision on our template so that it matches. And then let's move that template back. Let's pitch him down. Bend his toes. And let's check our in-betweens here between frame 9 to frame 21. Let's go to frame 9 again, frame 21. You can move them a little farther forward just so that they match a bit more. Let's hit play. Okay, make sure that frame 24 is the same as frame 0 or vice versa. And we should have a good run working. Let's continue in-betweening these feet so that they can get out of the way here. This foot is just pushed off. It moves over, spreads out. So let's put him in place a little bit faster here, and I'm looking at the curves this time. So he drops to the ground and moves back up again. I'm going to change that curve. There. Front foot. Picks up off the ground. He moves forward. Let's get this to run the same. Okay. And I think the feet are going. Let's switch to perspective view and take a look at them. Not bad by changing a couple of keyframes and the timing. Okay, let's go back in and change a couple of other things, make them a bit more extreme here. Let's start with the hips. The hips, let's aim the hips up on frame 0. Hips up, they collapse, they're on their way down on frame 6. They go back up again on frame 12, come down, frame 18, and you can see right here I can just go back in and mess with the curves directly so that they move. Make sure the front and the last frames, the first and the last, are identical. And now we have a somewhat okay motion. So as he makes contact with the ground, he drops down. On frame 6 and 15. Let's see. Actually, you need to drop that a bit more here. Frame 12 drops down. I'm trying to make these curves identical. I'm just messing with the curves directly. Now the hips are moving in the same axes here that we had beforehand. Let's go back to a left view and let's work on the spine. Now the spine is just going to whip back and forth the same way. So on the spine is on its way down on frame 3. He bounces up, pauses. Frame 12 is the same as frame 0. Frame 15 just goes down, and now I can just edit these curves the way I can see the pattern emerging. I can just go through and mess with the curve, make it less intense, make it more of a sawtooth. Do the same thing we did before on the walk cycle. Let's go to the head, do the same thing on the head. The head bobs the way we wanted it to bob on the walk cycle, but now the neck is stretching all over the place, so we need to make sure that the head does the same thing. Let's hesitate the head. The head is going to pause, or should we have the head rapidly accelerate? Well, let's pause, accelerate, hold, up, hold, down, hold, up, hold, down, hold. There we go. Now, if that didn't make any sense, we did what we did in the last tutorial. We're holding the frames to lag them behind the rest of the motion. So we're just taking the same curve that we've put in and shifting it down a couple of frames so that we get some follow through. So as he's on his way down, we can aim him up. And down, and then up, and then down. So frame 12, frame 0, and I see the pattern emerging here. Then I just punch the rest of the pattern in once I figure out from the first half of the cycle how it's supposed to move. So his head is bobbing a lot, so we just turn that down. Same thing goes with Y. If he's bobbing too much, let's bring the tops and the bottoms down. Okay, so the next thing we haven't addressed is the length of the neck is changing along Z. So right now, if we take a look at the front, it's shorter. When it hits the passing position, it's longer, and then it's shorter again. So the right length is on this in-between on frame 3. So we take a look at here. This needs to be shorter, longer. I can see the pattern emerging inside the curve. So I can just go ahead and free this curve and put the rest of the pattern in by hand. So we can keep the length looking correct. Go back to frame 0, create the same key on frame 24 by hitting the Enter key. Okay, so far so good. Let's work on those hands. Those hands are wobbling. Just going to multi-select both of the hands, hand left and right. I'm just going to move them on Z here. So let's move them forward and down. They drop to the ground. Let's keep them at the same place, just so that they don't look very conspicuous. Okay, frame 0, turn off multi-edit, enter, create to frame 24. Okay, back onto the tail. Tail is a whip motion the same way before, so we can go ahead and lag that again. So tail's gonna drop. It's gonna bounce back up into the air, drop, bounce back up into the air. Let's take a look at the pitch on this. This tail is going to hesitate, or let's curve that down. Work its way back up, back down. Work its way back up. So I see the pattern emerging again. This is the center line, so we trace that. So that starts from here and then goes back up again. Let's go to frame 0, copy it to frame 24. Make the back of the tail. Let's reduce the flop using just the keys. Just looking at the pattern. Okay, let's go to perspective view, take a look at it. Looks pretty good. Still got our good figure eights. We have a very similar movement. We have him running where his feet are off the ground at the same time during some frames. And we can blend this animation in with the walk cycle in later lessons fairly easily. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to save this scene as Dino Run.fxs. Go into Compose, and since this was taken off of the Dino Walk, we still have this walk clip on here. We don't need that for this particular scene file. So remove the walk, go back to the tracks, punch in Run. We should have the same settings here, the current group, which is our Dino body keys. On the local keys, hit Copy, and now the clip is sitting in there called Run. So right click, Save Current, and inside the motion, Run.mcp.